All right, I'm sure you've all heard that sometimes in life when you think that something isn't going to work right, you should probably have a backup plan. Okay, so I had a backup plan for what I wanted to do today. And then I thought, well, what if that goes bad? And then I needed a backup plan for the backup plan. All right, so we're going to go on and we're going to get this to at least partially work today. And then to get it to fully work, I'm going to show you what we're going to do. Okay? All right, so this is what's supposed to happen in here. In fact, I'm just going to show you, this is the semi-completed project. We're going to call it that. All right? So you should be able to come in here, and you should be able to click on one of these, and it should bring up that person. For some reason, it's not. I can't figure out why. All right? That's on me. I've looked at it and looked at it. Probably I've looked at it too much, to be honest with you. Seriously. All right? But I also want to be able to go back in here. You see I've got these three people in here, or these three films. And click at delete all. Are you sure you want to delete them? Yes. Boom, they're gone. All right. Now, the reason I'm showing you that is I'm going to come back in here and supposedly now the database has been cleaned out. All right. So I'm going to put in and just show you. So I'll put in a couple things. So ET. It's a good one because doesn't take much to type. Steven Spielberg. I have no idea how to spell his name, so that's good enough. And I have no idea how long that is, so I put that in. Now, what's supposed to happen is you click Add. Now watch what happens, because it's saying that it worked, and it did work, but only sort of. So when I click Add, watch the toast. Insert success. That's good, right? And then when I go back to here, it's supposed to be showing there, but it's not. Not sure why that's happening, but it is. So I'm going to go in, just so you see them, I'm going to add another one. And I'm going to add some goofy one that I've never, let's see, let's see, there's a movie that I know I saw it this way. I didn't see it, but how about the new Batman? Isn't it called The Batman? All right, The Batman. And I have no idea who the director is. And you may know and you may not know. I don't really care. But for now, it's John Doe. All right, and I heard it was really long, so I'm going to say 180 minutes, so 3 hours. Okay? All right, so I'm going to click Add. Again, I get the Insert Success toast. Okay? And again, when I go back to here, it's not showing. Now, what does happen is if I get out and I get back in again, there it is. So it's showing there. So I'm doing something, and I am telling it to redraw itself, but for some reason, I'm either telling it in the wrong place to redraw itself, or I'm telling it in the incorrect way. All right? The other thing I want to show you is you can see that stuff right there. Now, if I didn't show you this last week, and I probably didn't, so I want to right now, okay? And you all have the project up on your screen? All right, I just want to show you that if you go up here and you click View, all right, and then right at the very top it says Tool Windows. Everybody see where I am? And then if you go down, about halfway, you'll see it says Device File Explorer. And if you click there, now it replaced basically what was here. The emulator is still there, it's just that it went to the background. Now, and if you look right here, if you look up on the screen, you'll notice there's a folder called Data. And if I open that one up, guess what? There's another folder called Data. All right? And if I open that one up, this has got every project I've created. My guess is it's probably longer than yours is. All right? But if I go down and look long enough, I'm going to find edu.rankin.jpscott.moviesdbv1. You should be able to find yours with your stuff in there. Okay? So if I go and open that up, you'll notice that I've got 3 folders. A cache folder, a code cache folder, and a databases folder. If I open up the databases folder, all right, there's my database. Now, you probably haven't looked at yours yet, and you may or may not have even entered information in there, so that's not that big a thing. But I just wanted to show you something. If I go and copy that, I was going to take this and copy it just to the desktop and then open it up with that SQLite browser that we did last week, it's not going to look like it just did. It's going to have an old version in there. So every time you make changes, if you want to see what the actual database looks like, you've got to go back to this folder that says Databases. You have to right mouse click on it and choose Synchronize, which is down near the bottom. Everybody see that? Now if I click synchronized, now if I right mouse click and I choose save as, all right, and this is a pain in the butt to get this thing to work. I'm sure there's a better way of doing it than the way I'm going to show you. But if I come here, whoops, because notice where it wants to save it right where it is, and I don't want it there. I want it under the desktop. Oops. / desktop. Sometimes it takes it like it did there. Sometimes it doesn't take it for whatever reason. But I'm going to click on the word desktop right here. I probably have a version of it here already, so it might ask me if I want to replace it. You probably won't get that if you don't have one. So, see that? It already exists. Do I want to replace it? Yes. All right? So now it's there. Now, why am I showing you all this stuff? It's going to be obvious, hopefully, in about a minute. Okay? So if I come back again to my emulator, all right, which again is for whatever reason is now not showing, but all right. But if I go back to my emulator, what's going to happen is, oh, there it is. There we go. So you see the stuff that's there. All right. All I'm saying is I'm not trying to put anything over on you here. But if I come here and go to my desktop, here's the file, filmlibrary.db right here. There it is. Okay. And if I right mouse click on that, I could choose an open with, but that's kind of a pain in the butt. So what I'm going to do is over here, I tack to the desktop the SQLite browser right there. All right, so I'm going to open that, and then I've got to say, okay, what do I want to do? Well, I want to open a database. What database do I want to open? I want to open the filmlibrary.db. All right, so I tell it to open that. And it's like, well, it's not there, just give it a second. First thing I want to do is I want to come down here, and I want to tell it to choose films. Okay, now I'm surprised. It looks like it didn't update. All right, so I don't know what the heck's going on. But if I go into films, there's where my database is. You can even go back and go to the database structure and go to films again, and it shows you the schema. Can you see this? So it shows you the entire schema. All right. Now that's the first time I've done this where it hasn't showed the new and improved one. So I'm not sure why it didn't, but it didn't. All right. So let's talk about the problems then with this. First of all, what is supposed to happen when I click here is it's supposed to come up and it's supposed to fill in that movie's stuff. Does that make sense? But instead, it's grabbing the else case on here, which means my if isn't working. So if I click on this, it says no data for update. That's the else condition that's coming up in that toast. So we got to fix that. All right? And then the idea is if we can get this to work between, let's say, today and tomorrow, maybe today, maybe not. All right? So maybe I'm telling you too much information here. I don't have any idea. But I'm working on this, and it's Friday night, and of course I'm thinking to myself, what the hell am I doing working on this on a Friday night? And honest to God, I even said that out loud. My wife's laughing. She's like, well, you know, my daughters will call, and she'll be like, Dad's on the computer, and they're like, yeah, there's a surprise. You know, so the point is, I think you all know this, that virtually, anytime you've got a problem when you're working on a program, you get a goofy error, you get a goofy warning, and you have no idea what it means, you typically Google it, right? Because there's a pretty good chance somebody else has had that problem. Maybe not for certain, but there's probably a pretty good chance that somebody's had that problem. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to go look and see if there's something that's similar to what I've done, so I can find out what the hell I'm doing wrong. And I found this 6-part series where the guy is doing a thing on books, films, there's not that big of a difference. So I went in and started looking at his code. Well, he's got a 6-part series, and I'm going to send you all, I've got it right here, so it won't take any time to do it. But let's see, where is it? It's here someplace. It's one of these, so give me a break. Come on. There. It's this 6-part series. Here's his code. He actually put it out there, and sometimes people do that, and they put the whole thing out there in a GitHub repo. Sometimes, now I saw one this morning. I was looking for a good, I've gotten to the point with the online people, I'm going to have to do a semester-long project in each class. I think that's the only way this is going to work. All right? I mean, with what I'm doing right now, good luck with what you're doing. Okay? Because with some of the people, they're just, and I don't mean with him, I think you know that. But with some of the people, they're just not getting it. All right? It's pretty obvious. With the questions they're asking, or, I've had people, they had work that was due yesterday at midnight. They had 6 programs that were due. And I had people contacting me with questions on program 1. And this was at 4 o'clock at night. Now, maybe they're that good that they can write 6 programs in like 8 hours. I'm sure as hell not. All right? So, I went and watched this series, and I'll put it out there just in case you're interested. And again, we got his whole GitHub series, or his code repo too. So I went and changed a bunch of my code so it would look more like his. And then, believe it or not, it got worse instead of better. All right? And I wish I'd kept my original one, but of course I used the original one. I did everything I told you not to do. So rather than working with the original one I had, I went in there, or making a copy, I worked with the original. That's all on me, not on any of you. But my hope is this. What I'd like to have happen is the following, okay? We get this to work. That's first thing. Second thing is when you do come back here and you click on this, that as I told you before, you change it any way you want, but you make some kind of a change to it, okay? And when you click on one of these, and of course, then when it does come up, all right, the idea is you'll have more information than this in here. You can change it any way you want. Those of you who had the class last semester where we did a thing with IMDb, if you want to make it look more like that, fine. If you don't, also fine. All right? So that would be part of your assignment. All right? Then for your actual test, I was going to have you make a thing, I think I even told you this last week, call it something like constellations. Planets and stars, where you could put in information on different planets and you could put in information on different stars. And you would be able to use this one as a template for what you'd be doing. All right? And that, I thought, would probably get us through the rest of the week here and probably into next week with all the other work and stuff that you've got to do. But what I want to get into at least sometime next week is going back, and I'd like to redo this one. I haven't even looked to see if there's one in Google or any place else. But I'd like to redo this one using Firebase. And then have you go back and redo your two using Firebase. All right? And that'll get us somewhere near the end of the month. Does that make sense to everybody? We're at the 14th now, I would say. So somewhere in that area. And then in April, you'd be working on your projects. Okay? So that's, just so you know, that's kind of what I have in mind. All right? Okay. So that said, see, like the reason I mentioned this to you, and I put myself not on a pedestal, but I wanted you to know this, was because I'm not sure exactly what we got done last time. All right? So I think we had written our ad activity, our ad movie. Is that correct? Can somebody check and see if you've got an ad activity in there?
I have an ad activity, yeah.
Okay. Then if you would, take a look at it, and I may have changed some of my names. That isn't that big a thing, but your names have to match in yours. So in other words, what I did, if you look up on the screen, please, I decided, when you look in here at the XML, what do we have? Well, you've got your activity made. You've got your thing I call my row, which is each individual row for the recycler view. All right, then you've got an add and you've got an update. And in the update is the delete as well, just so you know, but that's no biggie. And don't worry if you don't have that, you'll have it by the end of the period. But what I wanted to show you is this. What I did, I don't know why it always does that, but it does, is I went in here and I tried to name my things the same virtually every time. But if it's for my ad routine, I called it ET name add. Edit text name add. All right, if it was update, I called it ET name update. Does that make sense? You, by no means do you have to do that. All right, but to me, doing it like that made it much easier when I was navigating my way through my text and looking at it. Now, I did discover one error I made. I thought maybe this would fix it, and I was all excited, but it did nothing. And that was this. Eventually what we're going to do, if you look up on your screen, please, or on this screen, this is the add routine. I did give it a little color. I maybe don't like the color, but I did give it a little bit of color, okay? And now if I bring up the update screen, what you're going to notice is they look almost the same, okay? So what I did was I copied the add screen, all the code that was in there, I copied it to the update screen. Does that make sense to everybody? Then I had to make changes in the names. But guess what? One of the things that I forgot to change, foolishly enough, if you look here, was this one, which is basically the name of the activity. Mine still said add activity. And once I saw that, I thought, oh, maybe that's the problem. No, it wasn't the problem. All right. But again, if you look in here, now it's ET name update, ET director update, ET running time update. All right. Now, if you don't like the way that I name stuff and you want to name stuff any way you want to, that's okay. And I've even said this to you in the past. Having even a bad coding standard that you adhere to is better than having no coding standard at all. All right. You may go to work for a place that tells you how to do everything. We name our variables like this. We name our constants like this. All right. We do this. We do this. But if you go to work for a place where either you're the only person working there who's programming, or it's a smaller shop, you know, you might have what I had when I went over and I worked for a company in Rockford, Illinois called Woodward Governor. I said, you know, what language do you use? Maybe I told you this. And their response was, what do you know? And I named like 6 languages. Yeah, we support all those. Anyone's fine. How about how you name your variables? How do you name them? It was like every time I asked a question, it was like, what do they say? It was the old... There was an old Bob Newhart show when he was a psychologist, and one of his patients would ask him a question, and he would basically ask the question back to them. That's kind of how that went. All right? Okay, so I wanted to show you then, to start with, this is the add activity. Let's just go through it from top to bottom. I'm not going to go through the imports or the package statement. All right, I figured that should make sense to everybody. All right? And again, if you don't have that stuff in there and you fill in everything, it should ask you for it anyway. All right. So this is almost the whole thing right here. So these are, okay. So notice in here I didn't call them ET name add, I just called it name add, and director add, and running time add, and BTN add. All right, which is its real name, so to speak. Does everybody understand what this is doing? Do you all understand why we're putting that stuff in there? All right? Because those are the things that are going to have code associated with them directly or indirectly. Okay? So those are the variables that we're using. But they're, for lack of better words, they're aliases. So what we're doing in here, and I usually put my little comment in here that says, get references to widgets. Now we're actually doing the mapping up. All right, and it is legal. Again, I could have called this ET name add and given that the same name as this. In fact, I did it on some of them. I didn't do it on others. All right? I came in and started changing stuff all over the place. Even stuff I knew, well, it can't be this, but I changed it anyway. All right? So we come in here in the Oncreate, and this is what we're doing. And one thing you just basically got to get used to is, you know, again, you're going to see more often than not setting up an on-click listener, as opposed to you going in there and giving it a name in the on-click event. All right, so we've looked at it both ways. This is considered the more professional way of doing things. All right, so if you said, well, I didn't do it that way and mine works, it's okay. I'm just telling you, you never have a clue as to what anybody who looks at your code is or is not looking for. You have no idea. All right? So this is the on-click listener, and again, you probably have all this stuff. But what are we doing here? Well, we're creating a new instance of our My Database Helper class. Why? Because that's So in other words, this is giving us a reference, for lack of better words, to our SQLite Open Helper class. Does that make sense to everybody? And in our SQLite Open Helper, which I called MyDB Helper, that's going to have all the routines in it to do all of our CRUD operations. And here we're calling the add part. All right? Could have called it create, because if we wanted this to be true CRUD, we could have called it create, read, update, and delete. All right? It would have worked just fine. So what are we doing here? Well, we're calling director.add. So we're calling add movie. So what we are attempting to do, this is the code right here. That code is the code that should be running when I click right here. That should be allowing me to add a movie. All right? So when we do this, basically what we want to do right here is we've got three things that we're attempting to put into a database. You know this already. You also know that the first two are strings and that the third one is an integer. That should make sense to everybody in here. We do not put in the ID because we said primary key auto increment. So it's automatically put in there for us. We don't have to worry about it. All right? So this is saying, again, all right, basically grab everything that we put into that first text box that says in there, like, film name, okay, and then grab the film director, and then remember that with the running time, it's an integer. So what we are attempting to do right here with the add movie is we're attempting to take stuff that exists on our UI and we are attempting to put it into the database. All right? Since those first two fields, the name field and the director field, were both defined as being typed text, there's nothing special we have to do with them. All right? Technically, it would work fine without the trim. But again, what that's doing is that's making sure that if we just hit the space bar once or twice, that's going to get rid of that. That's all. All right? And then this last one, since it is an integer, and there's different ways of doing this. Probably could have done an integer.parseInt, but there's a bunch of different ways to do this. But this is grabbing the last one, the running time. Does anybody have any questions on any of that? Is there anything in there that doesn't make sense? All right. So again, that's the add activity. All right. Now, as far as the XML file that goes with it, and again, you might already have this done. Great. But this is what I've got. I put in 3 what? Right here. I put in an edit text, and an edit text, and an edit text, and a button. All right? Played around with this a little bit. You know, you can make the button bigger, you can make it smaller, you can make it wider. I could care less. But one of the things I would like you to do, because I didn't do it here, is I'd like you to, again, just so you get more practice using material design, is I'd like you to come in and set up your own theme with your own styles in it. All right? And hopefully that's what you've been doing in the projects that are due this week or next week. All right? So that's that. I don't know if I have to show anything that's in there. Hopefully everything that's in there makes sense. And also, again, not that it's a big thing one way or the other, but if you look up on the screen here, if I click and I go to landscape, to me, that's acceptable. All right? I don't think it looks terrible at all. Basically, it looks just like it does in portrait mode. Okay, but it's not where stuff is thrown all over the place and whatever. So one thing as far as that goes that you should actually be thinking of is when you look in here is how you want to sync things up. All right? Because if you just take everything and just center it here and center it there, if you haven't found that out already, a lot of times when you go and you take it and you move it from portrait to landscape, it looks bad. So you either make another copy, another XML, or you fix it. All right. So does everybody have the add stuff? Yes? All right. Then I'm going to close that, so I'm going to close activity add, and I'm going to close add activity. Then let's go to main activity. Now, there's going to be stuff in here under my main activity you don't have. Don't worry about it yet. I want to walk you through what I have. All right? All right, you'll notice there's a bunch of stuff that's gray in here, probably don't need it. Okay, so what do we have in here? Okay, here was our floating action button. Here's our recycler view, and one of the things we're going to do in just a few minutes is we're going to come in and we're going to create our cursor adapter. Okay, we're going to do that in just a couple minutes. Okay, and then when you look in here, these are all array lists of strings that are just going to be used to hold that particular information. And again, hopefully at least that just makes some sense to you. All right, we want to be working throughout here with a database helper. Now, I called it, don't ask me why, but I called it MyDB sometimes and I called it DB other times. It doesn't matter. Probably for consistency, I should have picked one or the other and stuck with it. I didn't. All right. Then again, we came in here and we got references to our widgets. All right. And this was the click listener for that fab. That seems to work fine. And we looked at this last time, so I think everybody's got this. All right, we set up the intent. All right, and again, I have just found that I don't, there's many things about this language I don't understand, such as sometimes they want just this, sometimes they want main activity dot this, sometimes it doesn't like either one and I put in context, sometimes I put in get application context. All right, and I've had it where I've had to use all four of them in the same project. So there's some inconsistency, in my humble opinion, in the language. All right, so we set up the intent, and we tell it to start the activity. So that's all it's doing. Nothing big there. Nothing new there. That should make sense to everyone. All right, so then we come in here, and we create, again, a new instance of MyDB, and then we set these up. So these are just, for now, are just going to be array lists that are going to hold all of our information. They're all array lists, and they're all array lists of strings, even the ID. All right, because we're typically either going to be grabbing something from those text fields where it already is that way anyway, or we're going to be putting into something where it won't matter what the type is. We're not putting it into the database, is what I'm telling you right here. All right. Then we've got this thing called store data, which we'll get to in just a minute. This is setting up our adapter then. We've talked about this before. We've looked at this in the context of other projects. So we're setting up a new adapter there, and it kind of looks weird because we're passing in this twice. We'll go over that in just a bit. But then we're passing into it the ID, the movie name, the director name, and the running time. All right, then we're setting the adapter, and we're setting the layout manager. Okay, that also appears to be working okay. Now, then when we come in here, this is new, and I want to show you this, because what's supposed to be happening here is if I come in and make a change that has affected the way that the recycler view data looks, I'm telling the activity to recreate itself. So it's the equivalent of hitting like a refresh key, you know, that we had when we were working in the AWD1100 or 1000 class. So like when you made changes to stuff, if we weren't using live server, how you had to go back in and refresh your screen, it's the same kind of thing. Reload, whatever you want to call it. All right? Okay. Then this store data. Well, what's that doing? It's doing exactly what it says it's supposed to be doing. We're creating a cursor, and as it says, mydb.readData. We'll look at that in just a bit. If the cursor.getCount equals 0, there's no data to store. All right? So we just print up a toast message. This is not the way that you should handle it if you were going to put this live someplace. All right? Again, when you read enough documentation, they recommend that you do not have toasts. All right, in actual application code. All right, if we get down to here, there's data to store. So we're basically telling it to loop through, and as long as there's more data, store that data. And when it does it, it's a bunch of arrays. So get string 0, that's the first array. You can imagine that it's laid out, so it's got like 1, ET, Steven Spielberg, 185. Then the 1 is the 0 element right here. The ET would be the 1 element there. The Steven Spielberg would be the 2 element there. And the 185 would be the 3 element there. That should make sense as well, or at least hopefully it does. Now, I should mention this because I didn't before, so let me say it again quick. This one right here that I just mentioned, this thing about rewriting the screen, I had to do another one of those things where we click up here on main activity and we do a Control O. Remember that? And that's all the things you can override. All right? Because what we wanted to override on there was on activity result. All right? Okay. And then we also override in here on create options menu to set up a menu, and on options item selected to set that up. All right? And there's different ways you can do it. I did bring in an icon, and then later decided not to use the icon, so it just says delete all. I could bring the icon back. It's no big thing. This right here, and this should make sense to everybody, we'll look at it in just a moment, but this code that you see right here, when I go and run the program, try that again, and I click on my main page here, if I click here and I click delete all, and it comes in and it says this, the code that does that is the code that's in here. All right? So delete all records, yes. Now everything's clear. That's working fine, as you can see. All right? Okay. So what I thought we would start with is just coming in and let's create first the adapter, okay? And then we'll go back because we'll have to make some changes in this file right here to bring in the adapter, but that's okay. All right, so what I'd like you to do, please, is come back up here to edu.rankin.whatever, the thing that's up there. You know the drill by now, so right mouse click, choose new, and choose Java class. Is everybody comfortable with the fact now that if you come here and do what I'm showing you right now, so if you do a new Java class, that's going to have a class. In other words, it's going to have just pure code that you're going to use to manipulate one or more GUI activities. Does that make sense? On the other hand, if instead we're not doing this, but if we were to go down to activity and we picked one of these, usually it's going to be an empty activity, that's going to create two files. All right, it's going to create both our .java file and our XML file. All right, but in here, just come in here. You can call it what you want, but typical names, I've just called mine my adapter. All right, so my adapter. Now I'm not going to hit enter because I already have one by that name, but you can do that. All right, and we're going to look at the code for that right now. I'm going to go through it first, and then I'm going to put it up there. You want to key it in or do whatever. All right, and again, because a few of you put down on the evals, yeah, you know, don't just sit there and put it out there on a GitHub repo, make us do some work. So I'm making you do some work. All right, so I'm taking it that you were all able to do that, and you've got an empty my adapter class now. Let's go through it first. You'll have plenty of time. You look, it's got 90 lines, so it's not something you're going to finish in a second. But when you look on here, please don't start typing yet. This stuff, again, you won't have to worry about putting any of that stuff in. So we're already 20% through. All right? Now, this should make sense to all of you. Let's put in this stuff before you do anything else. And you're going to get errors. Don't worry about it. Just, if you would, right underneath the class where you've got your public class myAdapter, don't type the rest of that stuff in. Just leave it as public class myAdapter, which is what you should have. And please put in these half dozen or so lines. Let's do that first. And don't worry if you get an error on each line that's in there. By the time we get done, you shouldn't have any errors. Yeah, glad you didn't shut that door. It's already hot in here. All right, and again, I'll leave it up there. Some of you type faster than others do. But the context is one of the things that's in there that's probably the most confusing in the language. And I've looked, I bet you I've read 10, 20, whatever references on it, and none of them do a fantastic job of explaining what context is. This is going to be, again, when we want to actually do work with the activity, and don't worry about that right now. Okay? These, hopefully at least by now, these are self-explanatory. We talked about those a little bit before. All right? So once you have that, once you have this in here, and I'm assuming then that in just a second, if you don't, all of you will have these 6 lines in here. Then please go in and change this line right here so it looks like this. Change line 18 that I've got in blue so it looks like that. And you're going to get 2 errors. Don't worry, we'll fix them right away. All right, after you've got that line put in, if you're still typing, don't worry about it, but after you got that line put in, if you would move down, don't type this in. You can, but why should we? Let's have the system put that in for us. So get down to right here on yours, get down to that blank line, right mouse click, go to generate, go to constructor, choose all the fields, and click OK. All right, and that should fill everything in for you. I'm just going to cancel out of there because I've done it already. Now again, I played with mine a little bit, just putting everything on a separate line. You don't have to do that. You probably still have an error in this line right here. So you right mouse click on this line, and when you right mouse click, you want to choose Show Content Actions. And the first thing that comes up should say Implement Methods. You want to implement all 3 of those methods. By now you should be getting familiar with those methods. Onbindviewholder, Oncreate Viewholder, and your get count. All right, so we want to put all 3 of those in there. Questions? Does it make sense? All right. Again, technically, if you put it in like this and you use the same names, you've heard this already, but now the word this in here is mandatory. Okay? It is mandatory. Because otherwise the system doesn't know what you're trying to do. So that is saying whatever I'm passing in, copy that to that variable, or that variable, or that variable, or that one, or that one. All right? So let's go down first. Let's do the easy one right away. And that's get item count. So go down to that one. It probably is about halfway down on your screen or so. Now, before you type anything, it's just one line. So just wait a second. It wouldn't matter which of these you chose. You could say movie ID, or you could say movie name, or you could say movie director, or you could say movie running time. Because there's one of those entries for each entry you have in the database. So I just picked the first one out. It doesn't matter, though, which one you choose. Does that make sense to everybody? So if you have not put in that line, put in that line, please. Okay, everybody's got that? Good. All right. Then let's go up to, it doesn't matter the order in which we do these, but probably the next easiest one is the Oncreate Viewholder, because it's only 2 or 3 lines. All right? And you'll notice this one says, by default, it says at non-null and at override. Now, if yours doesn't say all that stuff, it really should, but if it doesn't, you can add it manually too. It doesn't hurt anything to manually add it. All right? So this is, again, as it says, we're creating the view holder. Now, before you type it in, a couple things. This in here, for lack of better words, that pretty much is just stock code. You put it in virtually every time. So you say layout inflator, you can call that what you want, but I just called it inflator, which is a common name, equals layout inflator dot from context. And then this line right here is where you are linking it up to my row, or whatever you call that. If you don't have a my row, we'll have it in a minute. So if you get an error on that, we're going to look at that next. All right? And this, you might get an error on too, because we haven't created the MovieDB class yet. That's okay. All right? But if you would, please put in these 3 lines. Again, if you get 1 or more errors, they will work themselves out in just a little bit. I'd like to finish this file, or as much of it as we can get done, and the associated XML file, then we'll take a break. All right? Now, am I right assuming everybody's caught up? Yes?
No, just yet.
Remember this, don't type in this attached to root. Don't type that in. That's put in by the IntelliSense. Okay? Now, if you got an error, one reason you'd get an error would be on this line right here. You know why? Because we didn't create that class yet. All right? So what you can do, if you've got that error, you can do it different ways, but one way you can do it is go back up to the top again, and probably right now, this might very well be red where it says My View Holder. And if it is, you can right mouse click on it, and under the actions, it should, you might have to click the Show Content Actions, but it'll say create that class. And you can do this. Now, so you've created the new MovieDB class. We're going to do that next, but before we do, if you remember in an earlier example that we went through when we were starting on Recycler Views, I don't think it was the President one, it might have been the other one, I don't remember. We put this in a separate file. You can do that. You can create the MovieDB in its own file. You see it done both ways. I just wanted you to know that. But I'm going to go down now because I put my view holder down on the bottom of the screen here. So there it is. There's the whole thing. All right, right there. So you can type that in if you've got that in there. You have to put in the extends. So you may still have an error up here after you did that. And if you do, you can right mouse click on it and again say that it should extend the recycler.myviewholder class. But when you get done, it should look something like this. All right, one last thing, just if you stop for just a second, 2 things. First of all, if you don't like that name, don't use it. All right, second of all, this is what I called it in my row.xml. So if you use the names I've used, in just a minute when we create the myrow.xml, that's what you should call these. Does that make sense to everybody? All right? Okay, go to it then. Just go.
So what exactly is super?
Super means : call the constructor of the parent. This extends recycler.MyViewholder, so there's some stuff internally that has to happen in the recycler's MyViewholder. And it's basically calling that constructor from this constructor. Java does that a lot. You may or may not remember back in C# when we were going over, we would say base dot sometimes, or we'd put a colon and we'd say base. That's the same kind of thing we're doing here. All right. Again, I'm hoping at least you don't get any errors when you do this. If you do, they'll be probably in here because we haven't created that file yet. So we'll create that file next. When we talk Firebase in a couple weeks, there'll be some differences because it's a NoSQL database. So it'll be different. But the point is, the concepts remain the same. So, what you've learned in here as far as how to do stuff, that's not really going to change very much. I know you've heard it more than once, but please remember Thursday is the job fair. So if you are planning on going, 9 to 12, earlier you get there, the better the parking spots you're going to get.
Yeah, and I have to get a COVID test beforehand.
Do you have to? It's a good
They might take your temperature before you get into it.
Because
Yeah.
I remember hearing earlier you said in St. Louis doing like any kind
No,
of activity.
in St. Louis, the mask mandate was removed last week.
Oh. What?
So they might do a temperature thing.
Yeah, that I can't tell you. I mean, if you want, I can contact Janie Summers. If you've got a card, if you have been vaccinated, I'd bring it with you. But that's your call. And I think I told you I'm not coming because we're behind in the C class or the C# class. So. We are using here what's called an item view, and that's why, unlike what we do in anything that's not in the recycler view code, we usually just say equals find view by ID dot. All right. Now again, you may not like my names here, which is totally fine. But does what's going on here make sense to people? We're just declaring some variables, all right, and we're basically setting them up, all right. Now, what you may have a question about is, okay, what the heck is that main layout? You're going to see that in just a moment. We actually set up an ID for the layout in my row. All right, we set up an ID for that. Does everybody have this? Are people still typing?
I've pretty much got it.
Then, before we go on, let's go and make the my row, because otherwise we're going to get other errors all over the place when we start putting in that code almost in every line. So, you know how to do this already. Right mouse click on layout, go to new, go down to layout resource file. So again, right mouse click on the layout folder, go to new, go to layout resource file, click it. I called mine my_row. All right, and I went in here for the root element and literally clicked and highlighted all this and typed in an L, and then it changes it to linear layout. All right, so I just chose that one. I can't think of a time I've ever done this where I haven't used a linear layout. All right? So that's really what yours should look like. I'm not going to hit OK because I've already created mine. All right? Questions on this? All right. So I'm going to cancel out of here and I'm going to bring that one up. So, taking it from the top. Yours doesn't look like this. Okay, we could drag the stuff in. We could key the stuff in. Let's just key it in. It's not really that much, but please look on the screen here. You want to make sure that your height, you set the wrap content. Otherwise, each film is going to be on a page by itself. We've talked about this kind of thing before. Also, notice this is where that main layout is. See that? So probably that's about all you have is this in yours. You probably don't have too much more in your file. We're going to arrow down, and I'm going to let you put in everything. All right? And then we'll take a break, even if we're not finished with the other file yet. That's fine. And you'd be surprised at how many of these things, they use a card view for just about everything. All right, one thing I realized that come fall, when I go through and teach the AWD1112 class again and we do the bootstrap section, is I didn't talk much about card views, but we're going to do everything in card views. It's just much easier. It's just like, having a little square, you can throw anything in the world you want to throw into
They
it.
also look better.
Yeah, you're right. It's much easier to have a better setup interface with those. It's funny, when we had our meeting, our advisory committee meeting a few weeks ago, one person, they said, well, what did we do in this class that hasn't helped you at all? And one guy right away goes, I thought the bootstrap sucked. And then everybody jumped on it. None of them liked it. They all thought it was stupid. They all thought it was a waste of time, basically. Everybody who commented. And they weren't mean. I mean, I don't think they said stupid. They said, yeah, it really, I don't ever use that stuff. Even people who were doing work with HTML weren't using that stuff. All right? But I don't think it's going to change. The one thing that will change is, I don't know with you guys if we use Bootstrap 4 or 5. I think we used 4.
We used 5.
We did use 5?
We
Good.
use 5.
All right. Because they keep coming up with extra stuff for 5. All right, I'm going to try to put some of that in there. But like I said, what I'm going to do is this summer is I'm just going to build, I don't know on what yet. I'll pick out something. And just build an entire site from scratch and then just break it down. So at the end of week 1, we'll have this really ugly looking 3 or 4 pages that have no CSS in them and nothing in them, and they just look like dog dirt. All right? And we'll just work with it from there. All right, let me ask, does everybody at least have this? Yes? Then I'll move this down. So otherwise, if you want to, you can do it the other way, where you drag out a card view, then underneath it drag out a constraint layout, then underneath that you put in 1, 2, 3 text views, 4 text views. If you want to do it like that, you can do it like that too. It might be a lot faster to do it like that. I don't know. All right, but I'm just going to leave this up here. I will tell you, this is something you'll probably want to play with, because I did not really like the way that I played with margin and I played with padding and the like, but that's a really good way to learn about margin and padding, is to take something like this and make it real big or make it real small, etc., and play around with it. All right. And I put margin and padding in here on each card view, so that's each one of those movies, right? That's the thing that holds each movie, correct? All right. If you wanted to instead, you could have put it like on the first text view, for example. There's a lot of different ways that this can be done. And I'm not advocating any one way over any other way. Does everybody have the card view finished? This one. All right, I'm going to keep moving it down then. That number 1 that's in there, that literally is a placeholder. All right, after I got done with it, I think on mine, I'm going to check because I think I actually did put something in the strings file there, number default. All right. Now, you're going to get an error on yours if you put in this, unless you go back into your strings file and create something called ID number default and give it a value of 1. So if you want to, for right now, just hard code a 1 in there. All right. Later, I will show you my strings file that you got most of the stuff in there right now anyway. One thing I don't understand too is, notice the text color. I'm making it black all over the place because it's like a dingy gray if you don't do that. I don't know why they don't make it black. I guess it's because so many people, take their interface and take their activities and make them different colors. That maybe is why. I don't know.
From what I can tell, the default color defaults to whatever the device's like light theme or dark theme is.
Yes, that's true.
That was messing with me a lot because I hooked up my actual phone
Yeah.
to this and was changing all the colors around.
In fact, on mine, I went into the colors file, and I just I asked for eggshell hex code, and I didn't like the regular one that came up, so it gave me a bunch of them, and I grabbed the one of them that I liked, and that's my background on all these.
Oh.
But my hope is, I've told you this before, I'm hoping to get people in here from industry, or at least possibly. I've got to talk to Chad because I'd like us to meet in there for the second last day that we meet, and we go in there. All right, and I want you guys to have projects that are just going to blow them away. They're going to, you'll know because when you're done, do you have a couple minutes afterwards where I can talk to you? Because that's happened before. All right, where these people have done that. Okay.
A bunch of errors or something. Could you go ahead and talk real quick? I might have forgotten something. Yeah. What do those top lines say right there?
Here,
The 3 lines that
The
was it?
XML.
XML.
those should have been put in for you.
Oh,
Uh,
that's weird. Yeah, I put in the that constraint layout thing. Like the card view works fine, but the constraint layout's giving me an error.
Well, make sure with the card view, you make sure you've got an ending greater than sign right there. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff that can make it
I
go
have
bad.
that.
And what we'll do is, if the day comes that we totally get this to work, all right, and I change mine so it's like yours so that it works, then when we're done, then I will put a working copy out there. All right, so if you want something, if something didn't work on yours or whatever. All right, can you dig it back down?
Yes.
Again, in here where I did stuff like set text color, set text size, style, etc., those would be all things you'd want to set for styles. All right, now when you got done, you'd want to wrap it up into a theme. And let me know if, when we're all done, if you fall behind or whatever, and you're like, can you print out a copy of that file? I'll do it. I don't care.
It's not letting me auto-complete the stuff, so I just have to type it manually for now.
And that could be a lot of different stuff. For instance, right here, Christopher, if you type this in, don't. Change that. Just put in the number 1.
Okay.
Unless you, like I said, otherwise you've got to go into your string file and actually manually put that in. I think if I click on it again, I don't remember how you do that, but it'll change to a 1, which is what was in there. And the only reason I did that and didn't just keep it as a number 1, we could have done that, but then you get that warning, you know, in your area there that'll say, hey, you know, you're not supposed to do that type of an idea, so. Is everybody finished with this first text view right here? Everybody done with that one? So we'll get done with this and we'll take a break. Text size 40 SP. Anybody remember what does SP stand for?
Scalable pixels.
That's correct. As opposed to DP, which is actually density pixels. I'm not sure why they got that D in there, but that's just what it is. And SP is used for text, and basically everything else is done with DP. All right. Now is everybody finished with that first text view? And you know, if you're having trouble, one thing you can do is just grab all the code for the text view, copy it to the next one, and then just make the changes you have to make, as opposed to starting from scratch. This should not error for anybody because black is one of the colors that you get built into the colors. Black and white are two of the colors that you get put in as default colors. So. And with this, if you look on the screen here, I didn't type this in right here. Sometimes that stuff just gets added. All right, and I watch some videos where people just remove that stuff right away and other ones where they don't touch it, so. But I didn't put that in. Does everybody have this first one here done? Yeah, okay. So it'll probably be in the area of 1:30 when we take our break. We'll take 15, come back, then and I'll go for an hour, and I'll give you, within the last hour I'll be lab, regardless of how far we get. We'll just finish it up tomorrow. And like I said, if you look at this one right here, if you were to copy this whole thing and put it down there, there's only about 3 or 4 lines you have to change. So you should be able to do that fairly quickly. Is everybody done with this text view? All right, and that's it. And when you get done, just, I'll come right back to this, but when you get done, it should look like that. And your color might be different, and that's going to be the ID, the name of the film, the director of the film, and the running time for the film. Again, you feel free to change the color or change anything else any way you want to change it. And it sounds like, Christopher, you wanted a hard copy of this. Anybody else who's gonna need a hard copy?
Please do.
I,
Just an email or something. I don't need a
maybe I
copy.
did something wrong with creating the XML. I put all the stuff in right. I'm just gonna put that in like a text document so I don't lose it and make a new one, I guess.
Yeah, I'll do this otherwise. What you just said is a good idea, so I'll throw it here. And I'm just gonna call it my row underscore text. Because it's a text document. And I'll send it to all of you right now. Anybody who doesn't need it,
I don't need it.
you don't need it? Okay.
As long as it's just for the my row.
Yeah. Let's see. Still gotta update my damn address book. So you don't want it. Okay. Alright, the rest of you should have it then. Okay, looks like in the gray building in St. Louis, that's where all the IT stuff will be. And you say, oh, I don't know what the hell the gray building is. I get that. I'll have to get you a map. All right, what you don't want is for it to be in here, the technology center, because then you have to cross the street. And it's a pain in the butt because people go 80 miles an hour down a 35-mile-an-hour road. You know, and they go through lights and everything else, so you shouldn't have to do that. All right. It's 125. Let's take 15 and come back then at 140, please. So I don't know if you had this. This is back in the My Adapter class, right at the bottom. All right. If you've got it, great. If you don't, I'll leave it up there for a sec. And then the only thing we've got left to do on there is the Onbindviewholder. And as I mentioned, I'll go right back to it, but if you did look, you really should make sure that yours looks at least pretty, whoops, no, wrong one. That yours looks pretty much like that. All right, maybe not exactly, but pretty close.
In the by adapter, can you go back to the Onbindviewholder? I think
I
everything.
will in about 30 seconds. Anybody still need this, the stuff that's up here? All right. We didn't do the Onbindviewholder yet.
Oh.
It's right here. That's what we're doing next.
Oh.
Now, don't worry if you get this error. I did a few things to try to get rid of it, but it didn't make the program run any different, and when I did leave the error in there, it still worked. All right, so I'll give you a few minutes to key that in. I think that's pretty much it for the My Adapter. Back on that. I think that's just about everything that we've got in that file, so hopefully, once you finish, you don't have any errors other than, like I said, the one that I've got up here.
Yeah, I just have that one and then the update activity class error as well.
Yes. Yeah, we're gonna do that next. And just so you see, if you look up on the screen here, I'm gonna send this out. I'll just send it out right now. That is, there's his GitHub of his working example with the books database, and here's links to all 6 of his videos. The longest one is like 17 minutes. There's like about 3 of them that are about 15 minutes. One is 10 minutes, and the last one's like 3 minutes. But he does some stuff that I've never done before. I'll show it to you in just a couple minutes. I'll send that out. So yeah, now for the, this is what I'd suggest you do. If you look up on the screen here, let's make a new activity. So let's come in here, new activity, make it an empty activity. And just call it, I mean, this is what I called it, so call it update activity. Again, I'm not going to hit enter because I've already got one, so it's making update activity 2 on mine. All right. And then once you have that, this is the fastest way of doing this. Everybody listening? This is the fastest way of doing this is, again, open up your activity add that's right here, .xml under your layouts. Open that one up, one that looks like this. Go over into code mode and do a Control-A, Control-C to highlight all of it, or however you highlight everything. That's totally up to you, of course. Then go to your activity update, go back into code mode, and paste it in. Now, after you do that, what are you going to have to change? Well, take it from the top. Look on the screen here. This has to be update activity right here. So if you've got a tools context line, make sure you change that. Then I called mine, instead of ET name add, I called it ET name update, ET director update, and ET running time update. So you'll have to change this. And then you'll have to change this. And you'll have to change this. Plus you want to change your button from BTN. Yours probably still says BTN add. You want to change that to BTN update. Then copy it and put a delete button right underneath it. Does all that make sense to everybody? All right, so I'll give you a couple minutes to do that, and then we'll go back and we'll write the update activity. Again, though, under all these, for the tools context, make sure you change that one. All right. Now, when we get all done with this, if one of yours works, that's fantastic. I'd much rather have one of yours work and mine not work. All right? But if one of yours works, I'm going to ask that then that you put it out on GitHub, and then I'll copy yours. Now, I did one like this last year, and I can't find it. I didn't use, I think last year might have even done books, but it wasn't from his. It didn't look like this. It was ugly. And when you're done, just open up, please, the updateactivity.java file, and we'll write that. It's not, it's longer than the add one is, but it's not super long, so. Should be able to finish this, all the code today, and then hopefully look at it tomorrow. Again, feel free to play with this any way you want to play with it too, so.
Did you say, do you know why the int position error is happening?
Did I know why? There's ways that you can get around it. You can cast and you can do a few other things, but that leads to other problems.
Yeah.
So,
The one I found was holder.getAdapterPosition. Seems to work the best.
okay. I was just sitting there talking with Mr. Corrigan, and he was watching this story on the news about Ukraine, and he said this guy was, his family was fleeing, and they were ahead of him. A mortar hit, and literally his family was just gone. They were just all taken out. They're not that they're even dead, they were just blown to bits. And he wasn't killed. He wasn't even hurt. And they were interviewing him, and he said, I have absolutely no reason to live right now. There's no reason I'm leaving. It's really sad. Again, at least mine looks like this, so probably should do, what would that be for the size here? 70 dp, I should do the same thing with it. All right, then going back to the update activity, and I'm going to guess that whatever is wrong with mine is something fairly simple. Usually I find hard stuff, but simple stuff just baffles the heck out of me. I don't know why, but it usually just seems to work that way. So, it's taken from the top. This is, I'll just show you everything. So. Everybody got that done? The stuff in blue here? Yeah, okay. Again, if you get any errors, we're gonna probably have to go back to the main activity. And yours probably isn't totally finished. Can I move that down to here? No? I don't know, if you guys want, I can send you this too, because this is for that confirm button. It's just kind of long. It's the same as the other, you have to put it in there twice, so you just grab that and send it to you.
After you send that, could you scroll back up to the update set on click listener?
Yep. So you've got that. So go up to where?
The update on click listener. Oh, the button update. Yeah, I was just missing the update data. Awesome.
Okay. So, like I said, I gave you, that's the else that you might still be typing in, but then underneath that is just the public void confirm dialog, and I gave you all that. And there's just the last curly at the end. So you should have all of this now. All right. So you just have to put in that. And James had mentioned too, if you want to go back to the My Adapter file and you want to get that removed, what did you put here?
You can set that as int position, and then you go down to the on-click listener.
So you can change it to that. That'll give you, that won't get rid of the error there, but down to here.
Then where it says position, do, like for example, intent put extra position, you do holder dot, oh, let's see here. Holder dot get adapter position.
Let me move that over.
And then if you just replace all
Yep,
of that, it should work.
Gotcha.
One thing I noticed with my Rankin one though, is whenever I reordered them by like setting them with the descending last names, it would instead open up the one that was originally in the old position for that spot. So I had to create a new system that would like redo all the IDs for the new order. I'm not sure if that's going to come up for this, but it might be necessary later.
Everybody caught up then? I'll bring up the main activity. Now at the bottom of it, the first one was called confirm dialog, but I just called this one confirm delete. See what I'm saying? But you've already got that code, so you can paste that in later. All right, so let's just take it up. Let's see. You should have all this. You should have all this and all this. Now for this one right here, don't type that one in directly again. Come back up. Go back up to the top. Go back up to here. Click on main activity and do a Control O. And then you want, what is it again? Where is it? On activity result. So right mouse click on here, not right mouse click, just click on it, do a Control O, and you can just start typing right where you are. Just type on activity result. I think that's what it was. And it really doesn't matter that much where it's put, but this is the code you have to put in. There's just these 3 lines. Whoops, that was nice. And again, as I mentioned to you before, this just basically says if you have to redraw the screen. All right. Okay, and let's see. Then I also went in and did the same thing, but for the 2 menu things. So do another Control O up on there. I don't know if it matters if I just always do it that way. And you wanna add the on create options menu and the on options item selected. It's just your menu stuff. I can check too. Let's see. That's how you do it then. Okay. I don't know why it would matter if you'd manually type it in. So if you want to manually type it in, that should work. I don't see where that'd be any different. And again, you've got all this code here. You've got every bit of that. The one that you copied over was called confirm dialog. So if you want to keep that one, then just change that to confirm dialog. All right, who cares? I believe at least that's it, but go ahead and try it when you get done, and my guess is yours is going to work just like mine does. and yours won't work like mine doesn't work. And I'm going to take a look at it tomorrow. I didn't spend nearly the time on it I wanted to this weekend, so. When your daughter says to you, Dad, I've been throwing up all day, would you watch my kid for me? You know, I thought I'd be too big of a jerk to say, no thanks. So, I spent from 9 till 5:30 with her yesterday. You don't realize how old you are until you're working with a little kid and she leaves. She's full of energy and I had no energy. Just while you're typing, you see listeners to it. I find this interesting. I am taking a class. I think I'm the only guy from America in this class. There's 10 of us, and it's on some advanced MERN stack stuff that I don't know yet. It's interesting because the gentleman who teaches it is from India, and he's teaching it from India. And I think they have like different protocols and stuff there. For instance, he has no problem having his phone ring while he's lecturing and just stopping the lecture and talking to somebody on the phone. I don't think I could ever do that. And he must be right near a residential area, doing it from his house or something, because you hear so much traffic and beeping, cars beeping at each other. It's, I don't know, just kind of makes me laugh. So again, one last time, you don't need to type this one in. You've already got that code. I sent you this code before. If you want to use that code directly like that, change the name of that. You've already got the code and it's called confirm dialog. So just keep confirm dialog and change that to confirm dialog. That's all. Save it, take it for a spin, and see if it, unless you got other errors.
Right now, I think I just need to add a few things to the MyDB helper.
Does it?
I think I
Okay.
need to add delete one record.
Oh,
and delete all
gotcha.
records.
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll go there next. Is everybody caught up? That I can go back to, thank you. I'll go back to the DB helper file. Do you need the update data too?
I believe.
Yes.
Okay, all right, then here they are. Here's update data, just so you know. The delete is not long, and neither is the delete all records is really short, but we'll just take it from the top. That's fine. Move this over. I'm giving a test tomorrow, and I will try to look at this during the test to see if I can come up with whatever the problem is. If anybody else finds it out and wants to send an email, blast everybody, that'd be fine too. Jesus. That's nice, I just tell you that I wouldn't have a guy. I think I told all of you last week that my oldest daughter is fairly sick, and I had it on before because my wife said she was going to call me, but she didn't call me. So. So even though it won't be due for a while yet, by tomorrow I'll have written up the requirements for this. You know, what I want you to do and then what I want you to do for that other one, so. And I'm going to pause this for Can I move this down to here, like that? Is that okay?
Yep.
Hopefully with some of this, you realize why I spent that day going over that stuff before we actually keyed anything in. Everybody have the if and the else done? I can move that down? 'Cause I think that'll be just about down at the bottom. Nope. No, after the delete one record it will be. Can I move it down to the last one? Like I said, it's only about 4 or 5 lines. That's it. Now, when we get done in a few minutes, if anybody needs anything put back up there, that's fine. But what I want to do, everybody completed? Okay, is I want to show you something, and then it's this. Let me do a file save all, because I made a couple of changes myself. But I'm going to turn this off. And again, I'm still having Gradle problems. I'm tired of, I must have reinstalled the Gradle files in here, I bet you at least a dozen times. And it hasn't gotten any better. So, when I rerun this, I always log back in as administrator. So, close that. I'm going to try, this is his, just so you can see what it's supposed to look like, I guess. Again, this is with books. This is what happened this morning. The kid said, it said Gradle build running, and then it just stopped. I let it go for 10 minutes, and oh, there it goes, good. Now this is what he does when there is no data. He actually put a different thing in there, which is kind of cool. But you come in here, so again, he used books. So, word piece. I think that was Tolstoy, I don't know. I know it's long. Let's see, 567 pages. And you come down here and you click add. It says added successfully. Now when you go back, this isn't showing either. I don't know why, but it did when I did it before. All right, but well, that's interesting that this isn't shown on here either, because this is his final product rather, and it worked. But you can't come in here. I thought maybe I could cheat a little bit. Just come in here and say, you know, War and Peace, and do it that way. And then come in and change the author, you know, some guy, and the number of pages to 111. click Add. Now it says added successfully. See that? It didn't say that it was updated. But again, when you go back to here, it should be shown on here. It was before. I don't know. And he did the same, basically, again, I patterned it after his. So, if anybody has time and wants to take a look at it, that'd be great. I'm going to also, if I find anything that he's done that I haven't done, or vice versa. The other thing that he did, and again, it's not showing on here, of course, right now, but the other thing that he did is when his list view comes into focus, he added animation. So it looks like it's kind of coming up like this a little bit. All right. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do again, hopefully once we get this to work, is, as I mentioned, make some changes to it and bring in an image as well. I'd like you, as always, to put a splash screen. I wouldn't mind this being a different splash screen. If you're using the same one all the time, it's okay. But with this one, it's a movie thing, so maybe you could have something, an image of a movie or something, or of a projector, and bring that up. All right. Again, I'm just looking for these to look as professional as possible. And again, I'll write that up by tomorrow when you come into class. So, all right.
I do have one more request.
Yeah.
Can we see the My Menu file?
Oh,
Yeah, mine
yeah.
and-
Yeah, it's literally about 3 lines, but I'll bring it up right now. In fact, I'll show you both the My Menu and I'll show you my strings file, so if you do want to see that, you'll be able to. Yep, thank you. Well, here's the My Menu. As soon as it decides to cooperate. So there's that one. You know how to create that now, right? Am I right in assuming that? Look on the screen if you would. If you don't, there's different ways of doing it, but I want to show you quickly the easiest way of doing this. Let me bring the project back up again, okay? I might get Gradle problems now because I'm running it. I'm not running it as an administrator, but that won't matter anyway. So let's see. The easiest way to do this then is to come up in here once this syncs. All right. And with all your, come on, there you go. All right. I've got a menu folder. You can just make one. All right, but you should make it, notice it's inside of Res. So you right mouse click on your Res folder, you go to New, and go down to Android Resource Directory. Everybody see what I did? Right mouse clicked on Res, New, Android Resource Directory. Then in here, the easiest way, I'm not going to do it because I already have one, but you type in menu here, then on the drop down, you also choose menu. All right? And that'll create the new folder for you. That's not the only way of doing it, but that's the way I do it all the time. I think that's the easiest way to do it, or most straightforward way. So as far as what's in there, let me bring that up, and then I'll also get ready to show you my strings file. So here that is. You'll have to come in and create a new file. Does that make sense to everybody? So you'll want to go into this menu, right mouse click, New, and go down to Menu Resource File. Okay? I called it My Menu. You can call it whatever you want. Okay? And this is all that I added right here, and the code is right there. Now, I've got the drawable in here. You're going to get an error if you put that in. Everybody hear me? Remember how we added the plus sign? I went back in and also added a garbage can. But you don't even have to do that. So you could leave the icon, you can leave that line out if you get an error. Or you can go back in and add that yourself, or you can even add the plus sign again. It doesn't really matter. There's just a bunch of different ways that it can be done. And if you leave this in here as never, it'll come up as the 3 dots. All right? You can put it in there as always, but be real leery about doing that. Remember, you only have a certain amount of real estate up at the top even of your screen. So if you're going to do that, don't put a whole bunch of stuff in there and then say you always want to show it. If you're going to do that, there's another one that says if room. That's the best way to do that one. I'll give you a couple minutes. When you're done, like I said, I'll bring up my strings file. Make yours look any way you want. Yours. Everybody got that? I'll just bring up the strings file then. Okay. All right. And again, you don't have to do it. I did put in some colors. Okay. I guess they're not even showing in here. I thought I did, but who knows? And for the strings, what the heck? Is this the wrong one? Oh, I brought his up. I didn't bring mine up. That's why. Okay, let me bring mine up so you can see those. Mine looks the same basically as his does. There it is. Let's double check, so I'll bring my menu up to see if it looks any different. So I said I don't think it looks any different. And I've changed it, I rewrote it, I did so many things to it. I changed so much code that I was like, it can't be this, but I changed it anyway. All right, and again, my strings file. So in colors, I added eggshell. All right, and I had powder blue in there, but I thought that looked really bad. So there's my strings file. He does a few things that I knew you could do, but I had never tried to do. For instance, if you remember when you got the update page, how I went into the manifest file and changed that, he changes it programmatically, which is what you can do too. All right? You can make a case and say his is a cleaner way of doing it than the way I did it. I wouldn't even argue with you on that. So again, I had you manually code the number 1 in there on your my row. If you put that in, you don't need to do that. It's not a big thing at all. So the rest of the week then will be layup. So hopefully that'll give anybody who's behind, it'll give you a chance to catch up. All right? I'm going to keep working on this until I get this to work, until one of you finds it out or I find it out. And once we do that, then I'm just going to, I will grade. I'm a little bit behind, but most of your stuff should be graded. A couple of you who've gotten stuff in later to me, it hasn't been graded, but I'll try to grade it as fast as I can. Anybody need any other screen shown or anything else shown?
Can you remind me, for accessing just the database, where you save it to your desktop and open it through SQLite, was that the File Explorer?
No, you got to do that, you've got to go in and you click View, Tool Windows at the top, and then about halfway down, it's Device File Explorer. About halfway down.
Yeah.
And then it's, underneath that, it's data.
Data.
I think,
And you've got to find your package name in there.
I think I missed the all activity result part for May.
For me, okay,